Hi, everyone. Good evening, and welcome to the NorthJersey.com Sports Show Live. I'm Dave Rivera, the sports director at NorthJersey.com, and tonight we've got the NFL Draft Preview Edition. We are just 60 minutes, now less than 60 minutes away from the 2020 NFL Draft. It's a draft that we've never seen before, a different format, and for obvious reasons. So tonight, I'd like to bring in four of our NFL writers from across Gannett's Atlantic region. Art Stapleton. He's a New York Giants writer from the Bergen Record and NorthJersey.com. Art, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing well, Dave. Everybody's staying safe and getting excited.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got Andy Vasquez, our New York Jets writer, also from the Bergen Record and NorthJersey.com. Andy, how's it going?
Going great. Looking forward to seeing what happens tonight. Should be an interesting night on a lot of levels.
Martin Frank is our Philadelphia Eagles writer from the News Journal and DelawareOnline.com. Martin, how's it going?
It's going pretty well. I can't believe the day is finally here. It seems like it's been years in the makings.
Yeah, it's a day we've been waiting for a long time. Yeah. And Sal Majorana, our Buffalo Bills writer from the Democrat and Chronicle.com. Sal, how's it going?
I am good. I hope you guys enjoy your evening while I sit here and do basically nothing. The Bills have the first round pick.
Bills don't have a pick, but Sal's still somehow working. So, guys, and listen, for everybody out there who's watching live, we'll take your questions, comments. If you have a question, you have a comment, please drop it in, and we'll try to get to them during the show. We'll take you down to about 7:30, so you got plenty of time to get ready for the draft. Guys, I'll throw this out there. It's a virtual draft. We're all going to be hanging out in Roger Goodell's basement tonight. Sal, I'll start with you. What do you expect to see, or how do we wrap our arms around this virtual draft tonight?
Yeah, it's really going to be bizarre. Let's face it. We'd all be sitting in media rooms at our various team facilities right now, probably eating a really good dinner. I know the Bills put out a great spread every year. So it's going to be very strange to be sitting here all isolated, not with our pals in the media. And it's going to be a draft, though, guys. Every team's going to be picking players. It's just going to be in a different format. So I'm sure we're all going to survive, and it'll still be interesting. And, hey, at least there's live sports on TV for the first time in a month and a half or whatever.
Art, what's your take on tonight?
Yeah, like Sal said, we're looking at the meals. I got a nice penne and homemade meatballs waiting for me in between the show and the start of the draft. So I'm doing pretty good, as you would anticipate on that front. But, it's interesting. I think – what I found cool is, in the last couple of years, it kind of becomes a little goofy when all the prospects are doing their, red carpet. This year was supposed to be getting on a boat in the fountains in Vegas. But I thought it was something cool over the last couple of hours, some of the prospects putting out videos that they were home. One, Tristan Wirfs, who I know is one of the targets for the Giants. He was raised by a single mom, and he talked to the Combine about how he wanted to repay her, and that's his motivation. He rolled out the red carpet in front of their home in Iowa, and they walked the red carpet there to kind of as a symbolic gesture for tonight and how special it is. So, I think people will find cool things to kind of commemorate tonight, considering all the challenges that we're all dealing with in society.
Yeah, everybody's trying to make this a special night and a special weekend in their own way. Martin, so we know the Giants and the Bills aren't delivering food tonight, but how will you be in contact with the Eagles tonight? What have they told you? What's the process?
Usually, we'll probably be able to talk to Howie Roseman after the Eagles make their pick at number 21. Probably around 10:30, 11 o'clock tonight. And that's basically it. That's kind of how it usually is, when we're at their complex. They make their pick. A few minutes later, Howie, Doug Peterson come down and talk to us and stuff. So that part will be the same. It's just everything else that's going to be so different. We're all sitting basically in Roger Goodell's basement watching a draft instead of, like Art was saying, watching these guys get paddled on a boat, to the fountains in Las Vegas at the Bellagio. So, it's going to be a little different. Hopefully everybody's got their IT problems all worked out. So, there won't be any glitches, but you never know. This is going to be probably a draft that no one will forget anytime soon.
And Andy, hopefully nobody hacks this draft at all tonight. I'm not going to say the Patriots. I'm not going to speak of the Patriots at all, but what do you expect for this draft? What are you going to see here?
Well, first of all, like everybody else said, I'm not going to see the food spread, which is disappointing because I'm with
You
my
guys are
parents
all
right now. I
talking
asked
food. I
them,
love it.
yeah. Well, I asked them for a similar setup. I wanted a cheese plate, maybe some wings, and I was told to not ask for that anymore. So I'll have to make my own cheese plate, but I think we'll be okay. And like Martin said, I'm really interested to see how this whole virtual aspect works out because it's not like anything we've seen before, and there could be snafus, things that could affect the draft. It's still a very important night for all these teams. And obviously, everyone watching has their priorities straight and know important in sports is different than important in the real world. But these are important picks. And if there is some sort of snafu or glitch or something that goes wrong, you have to imagine what it could mean, what it could be like if some team ends up getting screwed. So I hope there's some flexibility into what the NFL is built for tonight. I hope there's not any glitches. But I think either way, it's going to be entertaining, and it'll be great to see live sports again.
Well, we're going to break this show down into a couple segments, and let's start with the AFC East. It's been a quiet offseason for the Patriots, right? And I say that obviously kidding. Let's bring in Sal and Andy to talk AFC East. Andy, the Patriots obviously making huge news, as it seems they always do. What happens now to the Patriots with Tom Brady going to Tampa Bay? Even Gronkowski, who, yes, was, retired, but now he's in Tampa Bay also. What do you make of New England going forward now?
Well, they probably aren't going to be the prohibitive favorites that they once were, but it's still really hard to bet against Bill Belichick and everything he's built. And until we see him not have success and do something great with his team, you kind of have to expect it. So I don't think they're going to be the prohibitive favorites that they are. And I think the door is open for other teams like the Bills and the Jets and maybe even the Dolphins as soon as this year. It's hard to tell how it's all going to shake out. But I still think the Patriots are going to have something to say about it. And that's going to be one of the most interesting things to watch this year in the AFC East.
Sal, is this the time for Buffalo? Is this the time for them to really, grab the division now? Is this the opportunity that they've been waiting for?
Well, look, I mean, that's people are saying that. But I agree with Andy. I mean, the Patriots are still the Patriots. Bill Belichick, last I checked, is still the coach, and I do believe that they're going to upgrade. He'll be able to massage that roster, and that will not be a team that's just going to go away. Now, that being said, I do think that the Buffalo Bills finally, after 20 years almost, have put together a roster that probably is top to bottom, I think, the best one in the AFC East. I think it's going to be a much, much closer division than it's been in a long time because Andy said the Jets, I think, are going to be heard from. And I do believe the Dolphins, that team won 5 games last year with almost nothing. So that shows me that was a pretty good coaching job. They've got a ton of draft picks here. They've made some moves in free agency. I think it's going to be a really good division, guys. And 10 wins might be on the high side to win the division. Can the Bills win 10? They've got a very tough schedule like everybody else in the East. But I would say right now, and I can't believe I'm saying it, the Bills, I think, would be the early favorite to win the division.
You're shocking yourself by saying that, right?
I am. Well, when you go 17 years with no playoffs as I did, you can understand that.
Well, Andy, if the Jets are going to be a contender, obviously they've got to build this team around Sam Darnold. Is this the draft that they really have to kickstart that? Or are there other areas that they really need to figure out first?
Well, there are other areas because the Jets and there are always other areas, but I think where they really have to look, especially the way the depth and talent shakes out at the top of this draft, I think they do have to look the offensive line and they have to look at wide receiver. And I think if they can get their guy at either of those positions in the first round, it's going to be a great help for Sam Darnold. I think in an ideal world, they'd want an offensive tackle that they can put there because short-term and long-term, I think that's the kind of player that's going to help him the most. We saw him late in his first year. He did not have a great offensive line, but it was semi-competent. And even under pressure, as long as he had a little bit of time, he could make plays. But last year when the offensive line was so bad that he didn't know when blitzes were going to be coming or when guys are going to be popping free, he kind of got spooked and got uncomfortable and he had a tough time. So I think the tackle would be the best thing for them if their guy is there. But if
a lot of good tackles in
the
this
guys
draft,
are gone,
right?
yeah. If the top 2 guys are gone and the third and fourth tackle aren't their guy, then I think they should not hesitate to pull the trigger on wide receiver. I think in an ideal world, they'd want to build the offensive line, but they've improved the offensive line enough in free agency where they can take a receiver if they need to.
Well, sticking with the AFC East, Sal, you mentioned the Dolphins earlier, winning 5 games. They've got the number 5 pick tonight. Obviously there could be trades, but going into it, they're number 5. The Chargers are number 6. Both teams are said to have are looking for quarterbacks, so to speak. Tua is out there, the Alabama quarterback. Obviously, a lot of questions with him. Justin Herbert from Oregon. The Dolphins sitting at number 5. If Tua's on the board, do you go for Tua? Tell me what you think of him, and is he worth that number 5 pick?
Yeah, I mean, I think if there's no trades made, which I kind of doubt I think there's going to be somebody moving up either to Detroit spot or maybe even the Giants spot. In fact, in my mock draft, I don't know if you guys saw it, I had the Giants making the deal with the Chargers because they would only go down 2 spots and they'd still get the first offensive tackle. And I think the Chargers are the team that want Tua. There was a lot of talk out of Miami. I was reading the media guys down there that they seem, and it could be all smokescreens too, let's face it. They could be lying to their teeth, but there seemed to be more interest in Herbert. So if the Chargers really want Tua, maybe they're the team that goes up to Detroit or the Giants and makes the move. If nothing happens and the Dolphins have the first pick there, I think they would pick Tua. I mean, he went into last season as the clear number 1 choice, and he had misfortune. And Joe Burrow had the season of all seasons, so it changed a little bit. But I think Miami, if the Chargers don't get ahead of them, I think it's going to be Tua. I'd be surprised if it isn't, actually.
Sal, if you're a GM and you're sitting at number 5 and Tua is there, what would you do? I mean, in terms of the injury, and I know all the promise and potential he has, but that injury was rough.
Yeah, it was rough, and he also had some previous injuries too.
Right,
so
he did.
There are a lot of questions about him, and I understand that. But we all know, guys, that quarterback is what these teams need. When you're picking in this position, first of all, you don't want to be picking there again. So while you've got the opportunity to get a franchise quarterback, I think you have to roll the dice. It's not ideal. This is not Peyton Manning you're trying to pick here, number 1 overall. So who knows what these guys are going to be. I'm not even sure about Joe Burrow. I mean, Joe Burrow had a decent season in 2018, and then
one glorious year, yeah.
I mean, he ended up having one of the greatest years in history, playing for one of the greatest teams in history. So do we really know that Joe Burrow is going to be the true, next franchise superstar quarterback? We don't, but he's probably going number 1. And I think you got to feel the same way about Tua. You've got a chance to pick a guy like this. I think you have to take him.
And I hate to say it, but it sounds like Dwayne Haskins, the one fantastic year at Ohio State. And now who knows what his NFL future is. But anyway, Andy, with the Jets, there are other storylines. Obviously, Jamal Adams has been in the news lately as possible trade chip for the Jets, which would, maybe infuriate some fans. What do you hear about that, about Jamal Adams? Could he get traded in this draft?
I would say it's a low possibility, but it's definitely possible. I mean, Joe Douglas the other day, when we spoke to him about Jamal Adams, he did not rule out the possibility of trading him. He was honest and said that, he's going to take calls on pretty much everybody but Sam Darnold, because he always takes calls because it's his job to know how he can make the team better. So, but I think the way that the Jets value Jamal Adams, it's going to take a lot, probably multiple first-round picks for them to trade him. And I just think the odds of that happening aren't high. Now, the one X factor is the contract. He is reportedly not going to participate in the team's virtual voluntary offseason program, which is a clear warning shot at the Jets that he's not going to quietly play under the final 2 years of his rookie contract. He wants a raise. He's one of the best safeties in the game. He wants to get paid like it. I know Joe Douglas is very thrifty, very mindful of finances, but I don't think it's going to work. I don't think it's going to work if they don't pay him before the season. And I think they should probably pay him. It's very rare for it to happen. I think only 4 defensive players that were picked in the first round since 2011, from 2011 to 2016, I think only 4 defensive first rounders were extended after their 3rd year. So it's not something that often happens, but the Jets have a talent in Jamal Adams that doesn't come along often. He's not like a typical safety. He gets down in the box, makes more plays, is more impactful. So I think they can justify paying him a salary of, it would probably be over $15 million. But I think that's what's going to happen. I think they'll end up extending him, but it's possible he gets traded, but I'd rate it like 15%.
Well, Sal and Eddie, thank you for talking AFC East with us. Stick around because we're going to bring you back and talk about the first round and the picks and what your predictions are. So, but let's talk NFC East now. 3 new coaches in the NFC East: Joe Judge with the Giants, Mike McCarthy with the Cowboys, Ron Rivera with the Redskins. Doug Peterson is now the dean of coaches in the NFC East. Go figure. Martin, do the Eagles now, do they have this advantage over the other teams in the East because they've got their system in place, their coach in place, right. He's familiar with the players more so than the other new coaches? What's your take on the Eagles and an advantage they might have here?
Well, like in a normal offseason, this wouldn't be a big deal because, teams with new coaches can start their offseason program 2 weeks ahead of teams with returning coaches. But obviously that's not the case this year. Like teams are only doing virtual type of instruction and everything. Like that started this week with teams with new coaches. Next week, everybody else gets to do their virtual offseason program. So, yeah, I mean, a team like the Eagles, they would have a huge advantage because basically, the core of the team is still in place. They're coming off winning the NFC East. All these other teams, they're learning new systems. They have new coaches who do things their way. Generally, those teams, because they have new coaches, have a lot of turnover. So that's another factor that goes into it. But, at the same time, the Eagles have had quite a bit of turnover during the offseason as well. Like 4 of their assistant coaches either got fired or moved on. So, Doug Peterson's bringing in. He fired his offensive coordinator. Instead of replacing him, he's kind of like delegating things to, a senior advisor brought in from the Broncos. They have Marty Mornhinweg, who they brought in from the Ravens. Well, I guess he was out last year, but, so they have they're doing it a little differently. They have a brand new secondary, basically. They traded for Darius Slay. Malcolm Jenkins left. They're moving Jalen Mills to safety. They have a new defensive backs coach. So, the Eagles have some new adjustments to make as well. But, I mean, they definitely have a leg up in the fact that, Doug Peterson's the same. Howie Roseman's the same. They have a ton of veterans who've kind of been through it before. They know what to expect. And, they can bring the new guys along. So, yeah, I would say the Eagles do have an advantage in this situation.
Now, Art, the Giants have a new coach, Joe Judge. Tell us about the philosophy he brings to the Giants and what's the change here with this new coach?
Well, I think first off, Dave, you have to look at it and say what you don't want him to be is Belichick Jr. And I think when former Patriots assistants have taken head coaching jobs, the problems that they've run into have come from the idea that, well, we're just going to do what Belichick did, only in a new place. And Judge kind of made it pretty clear from the beginning that he wanted to build his own program here. He didn't want to replicate Bill Belichick's program. But there is some validity in the idea that he does bring elements of what Belichick had in New England, also really at the college level, what Nick Saban has done at Alabama. I think Judge talks up versatility. He talks up players who are on the roster that don't tell me what you can't do, tell me what you can do, and we're going to get it out of you. So I think on the defensive side of the ball, the Giants are going to try to not focus on the idea that they're in need of an infusion of talent really at the second and third levels of this defense and say, we have the guys we have, let's use them in a new defensive system with defensive coordinator Patrick Graham, and see what they can get out of them in learning a new scheme. And then on the offensive side of the ball, I think Judge showed kind of some humility in a sense, is that he brings in Jason Garrett to essentially run the offense. And you're a first-year head coach, and you bring in an established coach that has been in this division, in this league. He's a big name. And you basically say, you know what, this is going to be your offense, whether it's for a year, 2 years, 3 years down the road. So I think Judge, he's confident. I think he's consistent. And right now, that's pretty much all I can really assess based on our interactions. But I do think that the Giants appreciate not only where he wants to go, but where he is in the moment. And that consistency, I think, works in a franchise that's had a lot of turnover. The Giants were built on continuity and consistency for years. That was their bread and butter. And since Tom Coughlin left, this is technically their fourth head coach since 2016. Steve Spagnuolo was on an interim basis the final 4 games of the 2017 season. So Joe Judge comes in. I think he'll have a longer leash than Ben McAdoo or Pat Shurmur had. his predecessors, and I think we'll see where Joe Judge goes now. This draft itself is as much about Dave Gettleman's legacy as it is to give us a feel for where Joe Judge wants this program to go.
Well, let's quickly talk Redskins and Cowboys. Martin, Redskins have the number 2 pick tonight. Is it a no-brainer that it's Chase Young? Please just tell me yes. Or would they do something crazy and would they take a quarterback? Listen, Ron Rivera's a new coach coming in. Right. Would they take a quarterback and just totally say goodbye to Mr. Haskins? Or do you think it's going to be Chase Young?
Well, you know what? It's not a no-brainer. I mean, I would say there's a pretty good chance they shock everyone and go with Tua at number 2. Wow. I mean, think about it. You mentioned Ron Rivera's coming in. He's got a new coach. Typically, you know, a coach and a quarterback, their success is tied together. If a coach comes in and doesn't have the quarterback he likes and the quarterback's not good, well, you know, his tenure could be pretty short. I think Ron Rivera probably wants to coach there for a long time. So maybe he's telling, you know, Washington, like, hey, you know, get me a quarterback. Tua's the guy. Get me him. And, you know, we can start building this thing. So I'm not saying they will do that because, you know, Chase Young is a generational, from what everyone's saying, a generational defensive end. And the Redskins would have a defensive line that's probably as good as any in the league if they go in that route. I mean, they have Montez Sweat. They have Jonathan Allen. I mean, it would be like pretty much the 49ers defensive line. And, you know, that pretty much took them to the Super Bowl this past year. So, and Rivera has always been a defensive-minded coach. I mean, you know, he was an assistant linebackers coach. He was a linebackers coach with the Eagles for a number of years and everything under Andy Reid. So, you know, maybe he values defense more and thinks, well, you know, Haskins did all right. You know, second year, you know, you make the big leap from year 1 to year 2, and that can make a difference for him. I mean, the Eagles played Washington in mid-December last year, and Haskins lit him up, basically. I mean, the rest of the time he was pretty inconsistent, but, you know, he looked like, you know, next coming to Joe Namath, you know, against the Eagles and stuff. So, yeah, I mean, it's not, as far as I'm concerned, it's not a lock that they're going with Chase Young. I mean, I could definitely see them taking Tua and then, you know, pretty much blowing up the whole draft. I mean, you know, because then what's Miami going to do? What are the Chargers going to do? You know, I'm sure one of them would then have to move up, you know, trade up with the Detroit Lions at number 3 to make sure, you know, they get Justin Herbert. I mean, if that's their guy, and maybe they don't. Maybe they're like, oh, man, now we got to go in another direction. So, yeah, Washington pretty much holds the key to the draft. It pretty much starts with them because we know the Bengals are going with Joe Burrow. I mean, I just saw something that, you know, they already called him and told him that, you know, he's going to be their pick. So, yeah, Washington pretty much holds the key to the draft as far as I'm concerned.
Lock it up, Martin. Lock it up. It's Chase Young.
Yeah.
It's Chase Young.
Lock it up. Famous 3 words.
All right. We'll see soon enough, right?
All right. Quickly in the Cowboys. Who are they taking in the first round?
Kayvon Chason, outside linebacker from LSU. Right. But one of the tweets I found was hilarious today. I think it was from Todd Archer of ESPN, that Jerry Jones has told the scouting department to leave him alone. No one bother him. He's the one in front of the laptop making the pick. So if you're a Cowboys fan, you know what? Tua drops a little bit. Who knows? Maybe Jerry gets a little antsy with Dak Prescott and makes a big play. So we'll see what happens. But I think the Cowboys go for a pass rusher if he's there.
All right, Art and Martin, thank you very much. Let's bring back Andy and Sal now. Let's wrap things up with our on the clock segment now, our final segment of the night. Let's talk about what you're seeing for tonight in the first round. I guess, listen, we all know Joe Burrow's going number 1. Does anybody want to disagree with that? No. Okay, thank you. Let's move on. Now, Sal, the Bills, they don't have a first round pick tonight. They traded Stephon Diggs. Was that worth the first round pick in your eyes?
Yeah, it really was. Look, we talked about it earlier. They're kind of in a win now mode. The division's wide open. They've got a good roster. They needed a true number 1 receiver, and they went and got him. And with this crazy situation we're in, if they had drafted a rookie at number 22, who knows, with no practices and whatever's happening, whether that kid could come right in and play. So they get a proven guy who's already on a 4-year deal, and it's not even a real back-breaking deal. He is their first-round pick in 2020. It's a good pick for them, too.
All right, so let's go in order now, the draft. Art, you've got the Giants here sitting there pretty high up in this draft. What does Dave Gettleman do? Does he just go ahead and take who he wants, or does he get tempted to make a trade?
I joked about this a couple times this week. I don't need any anonymous sources to tell me the Giants want to move down. Dave Gettleman would love to trade. It would be the first time in his tenure as a general manager dating back to Carolina and now the last 2+ seasons here with the Giants. I think they'd like to trade down into that 6-7 range if they could, pick up a 3rd-round pick, maybe between they picked 36th and then 99th because they traded that 3rd-round pick to the Jets for Leonard Williams. So there's a huge gap for a team that needs a lot of talent in different areas. So I think they ideally would trade back, but ultimately I think they stay at 4. I think they take the best offensive lineman on the board, and it's essentially a spin the wheel, and who do you land on? I landed on today Tristan Wirfs from Iowa. I would not be shocked if it's Andrew Thomas from Georgia or Jedrick Wills Jr. from Alabama. But I'll go Wirfs in that spot just based on the versatility that Joe Judge wants in all of his players. He can play tackle. He can kick inside at guard. So that's where I'm going with the Giants at number 4.
All right, Tristan Wirfs to the Giants. You heard it here. Andy, who do the Jets take at number 11 and why?
Well, I think it's going to be close if there's an offensive tackle there. I think there could be a run on tackles early in this draft. But I think either Jedrick Wills is going to be there or Tristan Wirfs. And I think if one of those two guys is there, or Becton, they're going to go – I think Becton will be off the board earlier. But I think if any of those 3 guys are there, the Jets will probably pick them. And if not, they're going to go with the wide receiver. But it's really important for them to do something to help Sam Darnold. I know that they have other holes at cornerback, and they need an edge rusher badly. And Joe Douglas said he's going to take the best available player, and that's understandable. But if they have such needs at these 3 positions that if one of those players isn't there, I think they'll seriously look at trading back or trading up or doing something to make that happen. Douglas comes from a school of thought with Oz Newsome, guys that have been aggressive, GMs that have been aggressive before. In trading during the draft. So I wouldn't be surprised to see the Jets do that. But I think ultimately they're going to go with an offensive tackle at number 11. And I think it's going to be Jedrick Wills.
All right, Martin. Eagles are on the clock. Who are they taking? I guess as a wide receiver, or are they going to go crazy if it's not?
There will be a virtual riot if the Eagles do not.
Virtual riot. It's got to be virtual.
Exactly. Otherwise, or maybe they know where Howie Roseman lives and they'll start hanging out at his house or something like that. No, the Eagles pretty much have to draft a wide receiver. You talk about the top 3 in the draft being Judy, Ruggs, and CeeDee Lamb, but I think Justin Jefferson is also in that mix, and the Eagles might even trade up a few spots to make sure they get one of those 4. I mean, obviously, if they're staying at 21 or moving up maybe to 16 or 17, then Jefferson is probably the guy. I don't think they have the capital, nor do they want to, move up maybe to the top 10 to get one of those other 2 guys. They love Ruggs because of his 4.27, speed in the 40-yard dash. They love Jefferson because he can pretty much do everything. He would be like a nightmare for defenses as a slot receiver, but he can also play on the outside. And that's kind of like the role they always figured for Nelson Aguilar, but Jefferson is just better. I mean, Aguilar had one good season, and now he's gone. He left as a free agent, signed a veterans minimum deal with the Raiders. So Jefferson is a much better version of Aguilar. Or, if Ruggs somehow falls down to that 15 to 16 range, I could definitely see the Eagles going for him. I think he would be their first choice. Jefferson would be their second choice. Either way, I can't see them coming out of the first round without one of those 2.
Well, Martin, DelawareOnline.com, thank you so much.
Yep.
Sal, Democratic Chronicle, thank you for being on here. Art and Andy, both from NorthJersey.com. Thank you guys so much for joining me, and enjoy the draft. Read these guys online and in the paper. It's going to be quite an interesting draft, unlike something we've never seen before, but we're looking forward to it. So, guys, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, Dave.
Thanks, Dave.
And thank you all for watching the NFL Draft Preview. I'm Dave Rivera. I'd like to thank the people who made this possible. Mike Pedagano, our director, Zach Miller, Sean Oates, Elise Toribio, Brian Marin, Paul Wood, a lot of great people behind this. So we really thank you all for joining me tonight, and enjoy the NFL Draft, and we'll talk to you guys soon.